10 minutes later, Xiaoxi pushed open the door of the ward. Sumei rushed into the ward at once, and Mr. Xiao was a step behind her. His scrutinizing gaze landed on Xiaoxi. You didn't do anything to your sister, did you? Are you worried? If you're worried, go take a look at her yourself. Xiaoxi's brows were slightly raised, and her tone could not conceal her delight. Don't worry, even murderers have the chance to surrender themselves to the police. I won't beat all of you to death in one go. It was merely a simple sentence. Her words were hard to understand, and Mr. Xiao frowned unhappily. It's just been a day since we haven't seen each other, but why are you speaking like this? Also, what's with the marriage you mentioned on the phone? Xiaoxi revealed a meaningful smile. You'll find out in the future. With that, she ignored Mr. Xiao's probing gaze and pressed the button for the elevator. She was ready to get a ride home. Xiaoxi, at this moment, a man's voice suddenly sounded behind her. The elevator stopped for some reason and did not arrive on her floor for a long time. Xiaoxi turned around helplessly. What? Gu Moling said unhappily. What's with your attitude? What kind of attitude do I have? Xiaoxi, Gu Moling could not help but raise his voice. Why did you become like this? Look at you now. You don't look like you're the Chia family's eldest daughter at all. You speak with such hostility as though someone owes you money. You have to know that you cussed Ro to Miss Scary. We weren't the ones who let you down. Xiaoxi stretched out a finger. Don't speak too soon. Go take a look at Xiaoro. Then you'll know how stupid you were just now. What do you mean? Ding! The elevator door opened and Xiaoxi walked in. Before the door closed, she suddenly looked at Gu Moling thoughtfully. Actually, the truth doesn't matter to you, right? You just care about who brings you more benefits. Did Gu Moling really like Xiaoro? Then? Not necessarily. In the ward, when Sumei entered and saw Xiaoro crying, her first reaction was that Xiaoxi had bullied her daughter. She turned around and was about to look for Xiaoxi to settle the score when she bumped into Mr. Xiao, who just entered. Mr. Xiao pushed her away angrily. Why are you in such a rush? Xiaoxi bullied Ro. Look at her. She's crying. Mom, it's not like that. Sister didn't bully me. I'm just too sad. Xiaoro's eyes turned red. She struggled to get down from the bed and knelt in front of Mr. Xiao and Sumei. I'm sorry, Dad and Mom. I lied to you. While Mr. Xiao and Sumei were confused, Gu Moling pushed the door open. When he saw the scene in the ward, he frowned in dissatisfaction. Ro, why aren't you resting on the bed after your surgery? Why are you kneeling on the floor? After saying that, he went over and wanted to carry Xiaoro up from the floor. Sumei and Mr. Xiao quickly came back to their senses and said, That's right. Ro, why are you suddenly kneeling on the floor? Brother Moling, I'm guilty. Dad, Mom, just let me kneel. Xiaoro held Gu Moling's hand pleadingly. When she thought of what she was going to say next, her tears came streaming down like a broken dam. Brother Moling, I'm sorry. I was never pregnant. I lied to you. Everyone in the ward was stunned. What do you mean? Sumei stuttered. Ro, why don't I understand what you're saying? Xiaoro bit her lip tightly. If it were possible, she did not want to confess to everything, but that damned Xiaoxi somehow managed to get the footage of what had happened in the operating room. In the video, she, who was supposed to be on anesthetics because of her miscarriage, was lying comfortably on the operating table and playing with her phone. If this video was released, all her hard work and reputation would be ruined. Xiaoxi forced her to admit what she had done to her parents and Gu Moling. She wanted her to clarify the fact that she had faked her pregnancy all along. Did Xiaoxi think that doing this would destroy her? No way. Thinking of this, Xiaoro lowered her eyes and let her tears fall onto the floor. Dad, Mom, I was never pregnant. Sister didn't push me either. I've been saying that sister didn't push me, but you guys didn't believe me. Brother Moling, are you very disappointed in me? But I didn't want to do that either. You and I got to know each other first. I was the one who was with you for so many years. Why did I have to give you up to my sister when she came back? I could give her the status of the Chia family's eldest daughter, and I could give my parents to her, but I didn't want to share you with her. When I thought about how I had to call you my brother-in-law in the future and never get to call you Brother Moling again, my heart ached even more. I admit that I'm despicable and selfish. I tried to make you feel guilty toward me using my pregnancy and miscarriage, also that you wouldn't be with my sister. Xiaoro knelt forward and grabbed onto the corner of Gu Moling's shirt tightly as if she was holding onto the last ray of hope. Brother Moling, I'm not a good person. I'm not a good person at all. I want you. I only want you. Gu Moling was shocked. Sumei reacted by shouting, Idiot. Ro, you're an idiot. Xiaoro sobbed softly. Mr. Xiao went forward and patted Gu Moling's shoulder. Moling, it was Ro's fault this time, but it's because she loves you too much. She loves you so much that she lost herself. It's all my fault. I didn't tell her that she would take her sister's place, so she Sigh, it's fine. Xiaoro cried so miserably that Gu Moling could not vent out his anger. He pulled Xiaoro up and gently wiped away her tears. It's not Ro-Ro's fault. It's my fault. If I had expressed my stance earlier, Ro-Ro wouldn't have used this method to keep me by her side. Xiaoro looked at him, touched. Brother Moling, if something had not happened, Xiaoro would not have taken the initiative to tell them about this. Thinking of this, Mr. Xiao hurriedly asked, Ro-Ro, did Xiaoxi say something to you? Xiaoro turned her head in embarrassment. She has video evidence of me bribing the doctor and the scene inside the operating room. Then, she grabbed Gu Moling's hand tightly. Brother Moling, what should I do? If my sister publicizes that video, not only me but Qiao Corporation will also be affected. It's all my fault. Why was I so stupid that I chose to lie about my pregnancy? She hammered her chest in frustration. Although Gu Moling was a little annoyed by the trouble that Xiaoro had caused, Xiaoro was right. If this matter was not resolved properly, it would affect Qiao Corporation and even the Gu family's reputation. Thinking of this, he held Xiaoro's shoulder and asked anxiously, are you sure all the evidence is in Xiaoxi's phone? Xiaoro hesitated for a while, then nodded affirmatively. She doesn't know how to use a computer, so everything should be on her phone. Gu Moling heaved a sigh of relief. Alright, I'll handle this matter, don't worry. He knew a very capable hacker who could easily hack into Xiaoxi's phone to delete the video. At the thought of this, he hurriedly took out his phone to contact the person. Beep. Xiaoxi's phone suddenly rang. She lowered her head, then looked up at the hospital building. Was this the legendary case of not giving up until she saw the Yellow River? At the same time, in the building of Gu Corporation, in the chairman's office on the top floor, Gu Jing turned leisurely while sitting in his chair. So, someone hacked into the internal website of Li City Hospital. You only found out about it today and made a report. Special Assistant Chen Xiao lowered his head. The other party is very quick. After we realized what was happening, we followed the traces but found nothing. What did that person do? They just deleted a few surveillance videos. Speaking of this, Chen Xiao found it a little strange. To be able to silently break through the firewall of Li City Hospital, it had to be a top hacker's doing. Usually, such hackers would steal confidential documents, but that person did not even touch those and only deleted a few useless videos. According to the forensics team, the person who invaded Li City Hospital was most likely Black Tide. Black Tide was an expert hacker who suddenly appeared 10 years ago. Hacking into major systems was like entering an uninhabited land. His methods were direct and brutal. No one knew who Black Tide was, whether they were a man or a woman. All they knew was that wherever Black Tide was, no other hacker could stop their attack. Black Tide? Gu Jing pondered for a moment. Let's put this matter aside and let the technical team take care of it. After Chen Xiao left, Gu Jing muttered to himself, Black Tide. It's been a while. At night, when Xiaoxi returned to the villa, she happened to see Gu Jing having dinner. She took a look at the dishes. Without getting the servants to do anything, she went to the kitchen to get some cutleries and sat on Gu Jing's right-hand side. Go to the other side. Gu Jing did not even raise his head. Xiaoxi shook her head. She glanced at Gu Jing's expression, then took the opportunity when he was not paying attention to touch his hand. She gently reminded him, shouldn't newlyweds kiss after not seeing each other for a day? Gu Jing's gaze on Xiaoxi was indescribable. Someone, get Madam a bowl of rice. He wanted to stuff Xiaoxi's mouth with food. Previously, Xiaoxi never refused any food as she thought that perhaps she might be able to taste. Now that she had already found something sweet, though, why would she want to eat those bitter foods? Looking at the bowl of white rice that was filled by the servants, Xiaoxi absent-mindedly grabbed her chopsticks and started playing with her food. Sensing her movements, Gu Jing glanced sideways. Not hungry. I'm hungry, but I don't feel like eating. You're throwing a tantrum. Was this considered throwing a tantrum? She simply had no appetite. Xiaoxi shook her head. No. Oh, Gu Jing did not say anything else and picked up his chopsticks to eat happily. Xiaoxi stared at him for a while before taking out her phone to read the message she just received. When she had just returned to the Qiao family, she overheard Xiaoro and Gu Moling's conversation. That was how she knew that they were struggling to find a computer hacker. She had learned from Lei Feng to do good deeds, so she secretly sent Gu Moling her contact details and helped them solve their urgent problem after that. Unexpectedly, Gu Moling reached out to her again, and this time, it was to delete the video file on her phone. He wanted her to hack into her own phone. Xiaoxi silently thought as she stared at the other party's offer. Gu Moling was quite kind to Xiaoro. should she earn his money. Xiaoxi happily accepted the payment. Guzheng, I have a suggestion. Xiaoxi put away her phone and took the opportunity to negotiate with Guzheng. We're newlyweds, so shouldn't we do more things to improve our relationship? Such as, you can kiss me from time to time. So, Guzheng put down his chopsticks and said slowly, you were looking at your phone for so long just now to find out how to take advantage of me. Xiaoxi, no, I was just handling some serious matters. Guzheng shot her a look, implying that he did not believe her. Xiaoxi spoke righteously, could it be that you don't think we should foster our relationship? We live under the same roof, so I think it's very necessary for us to foster a closer relationship. Guzheng supported his chin with one hand as his dark eyes locked onto Xiaoxi's face. His voice carried a trace of amusement as he said, I know a doctor, he's very knowledgeable about physical intimacy, do you need me to introduce him to you? He thought that Xiaoxi had a problem with her body and she was seriously ill. Xiaoxi, she did not want to talk to this person anymore. Guzheng sneered and stopped looking at her. He seemed to have thought of something and suddenly opened WeChat to send a message to a user with a black profile picture, are you in Liqing? Xiaoxi could not do anything to Guzheng who would not budge, so she could only turn her head and not look at him. At this moment, her phone vibrated, she took a look and was stunned, her online friend had sent her a message. Back then, she was young and reckless, she relied on her hacking skills to sweep through all the major internet control centers. Her arrogant actions caused her to have many enemies, but she also got to know a friend by accident. She and Mo Yuan got to know each other when they broke into the network of T country's National Security Center. At that time, they both thought that the other party wanted to capture their respective security experts. After realizing that it was a misunderstanding, the two of them covered each other and retreated safely. Perhaps it was because they shared a tacit understanding, they later added each other as friends. Whenever they encountered problems, they would seek help from the other party. Although it was easy for the two of them to investigate each other's identities, Mo Yuan and she seemed to have the same tacit understanding, they continued to maintain their friendship on the internet. However, what did Mo Yuan's words mean? She could not help but reply with a question mark. Is there any trouble going on in Li City Hospital recently? Seeing Mo Yuan's reply, Xiaoxi was enlightened. You're also in Li City? It's not too troublesome, it'll be settled soon. While Xiaoxi was typing and chatting with Mo Yuan, she raised her head and glanced at Guzheng, only to see him lazily fiddling with his phone. He did not care about her at all. She pursed her lips and could not help but complain to Mo Yuan, I coincidentally have something to ask you. Guzheng looked at the message sent by Black Tide and raised his eyebrows. What is it? Xiaoxi typed furiously, I have a friend who recently registered her marriage, but her legal husband refuses to get close to her. When my friend proposed to nurture their relationship and be more intimate, her husband asked her to see a doctor. In this situation, what can my friend do to get closer to her husband? Perhaps you should confirm if your friend was scammed into getting married. He had heard that many men would marry as a way to solve some of their problems. Scammed? Xiaoxi thought for a moment. Back then, she was the one who had looked for Guzheng. If it were a scam, she would be the scammer. Hence, she quickly denied it. She wasn't. Guzheng knocked on the table. Maybe there's something wrong with this man's body. You can ask your friend to bring him to see a urologist. Xiaoxi remained silent. Why are you looking at me like that? Guzheng waited for a long time but did not receive a reply from Black Tide. Xiaoxi, who was sitting next to him, sized him up with a very strange gaze, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. Nothing. Xiaoxi seemed to be lost in thought. All these years, she had never heard of any scandals between Guzheng and any other women. Whenever people from Li City talked about Guzheng, they would say that he was cold and unfeeling. Behind this callousness, could there be something else? Guzheng stared at her for 3 seconds. There seemed to be a lump in his throat as he slowly pushed his bowl of rice toward her. You're really not eating. The incident that Black Tide brought up had caused him to reflect on himself. Even though his marriage with Xiaoxi was not a proper marriage, in the eyes of women, marriage meant that the two of them would share an intimate relationship. In that sense, it was not wrong for Xiaoxi to want to be closer to him. Sighing, Guzheng grabbed Xiaoxi's wrist and was slightly helpless. You're not eating because I'm not kissing you? What's with this childish temper? Xiaoxi puckered her lips. As someone with normal taste buds, he naturally did not know that everything she ate was bitter. It was a truly painful experience. Fine. Guzheng's hand on her wrist loosened indifferently. By the time Xiaoxi reacted, Guzheng had already grabbed her waist and leaned over to kiss her lips. Xiaoxi's mind instantly went blank. Have you gone dumb? Guzheng slightly retreated, his hot breath spraying on Xiaoxi's ear. Or, is this your first kiss? Xiaoxi's pupils moved stiffly while she gaped. She did not say anything. Seeing this, Guzheng chuckled. His deep voice was magnetic and made one's scalp tingle. And here I was thinking about how bold you were. Turns out, you're nothing like that. Xiaoxi finally realized what Gujing had done. She paused for a long while before pursing her lips. No matter how dull she was in relationships, she knew that a kiss on the hand and a kiss on the lips were vastly different. As he gazed at Xiaoxi's clear and bright eyes, Guzheng's scalp became numb. Wait, don't tell me you're going to cry. Cry? Xiaoxi had not cried in ages. She smacked her lips and suddenly raised her hand to press it against the back of Guzheng's neck. She raised her chin and kissed Guzheng's lips again. She realized that Guzheng's lips were much sweeter than his fingers. He was caught off guard. It lasted for about 3 seconds. Or was it 3 minutes? In any case, when Guzheng pushed Xiaoxi away, his breathing was a little uneven. Woman, you. Guzheng picked up a meatball from the dining table and stuffed it into Xiaoxi's mouth. Are you kissing me like you're eating food? Xiaoxi instinctively bit it. The meatball with a fragrant sesame aroma exploded in her mouth. It was crispy and sweet. Xiaoxi's eyes lit up, and she bent down to pick up a pair of chopsticks before swiftly eating. Guzheng, after a while, Xiaoxi gradually slowed down. The aroma of the food in her mouth slowly vanished. The familiar bitter taste spread once again. It seemed that kissing Guzheng could let her normally taste food again. This was much more tempting than kissing his sweet fingers. Why are you looking at me like that? Guzheng covered his mouth and retreated. It was not that he was cowardly, but Xiaoxi's gaze was simply too terrifying. The way she stared at him reminded him of a hungry wolf that saw its prey on the plains. Oh, Xiaoxi swallowed the food in her mouth and smiled happily at Guzheng. I just want to tell you that it tastes pretty good. Guzheng. Was this woman teasing him? This woman was definitely teasing him. After eating a delicious dinner, Xiaoxi went upstairs in satisfaction. Xiaoxi had gained a lot of assets over the years, so she did not really care about Xiao Corporation. However, that did not mean that she would give it to Xiaoro. Since she was free tomorrow, she would take back what she should. The next afternoon, Xiaoxi changed into a black sweater and stepped out of the door in canvas shoes. On the second floor, Guzheng was sipping on his coffee and quietly scoffed. This woman was busier than him. Relying on her memory, Xiaoxi found the musical instrument store that was under Xiao Corporation. She casually plucked the strings of the guitars on the wall. At that moment, she heard a discordant voice. Brother Ling, that looks like my sister. Why is she here? Xiaoxi pulled the hood of her sweater and could not help but sigh. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. On the other side, Xiaoro seemed to have confirmed it and said hesitantly, why is she here? Does she want to buy something? A few days ago, Dad cancelled her credit card out of anger. Brother Ling, let's go over and take a look. If she likes something, we can give it to her. Give it to me. Xiaoxi turned around. Why would I need your help? Everything in this shop belonged to her, alright? Did she need Xiaoro's charity? Xiaoro's expression froze as tears welled up in her eyes. Sister, that's not what I meant, I just want to help you. Why you don't have any money on you and this shop happens to be mine. I just wanted to tell you that if you like something, you can take it, it's okay. Xiaoro's words made it seem as if Xiaoxi did not know how to appreciate kind gestures. At the same time, their identities were revealed. The customers in the shop could not help but glance sideways. Is this the rumored Xia family's eldest daughter who came back from the countryside? Looking at her, she's really from the countryside, she's so petty. How shameless, that's right. I just saw her touch those guitars on the wall, and one of them is what I wanted to buy. What bad luck. A female customer flung her hands in disgust, as if the guitar Xiaoxi had touched now carried an infectious disease. Xiaoxi did not withdraw her hand and instead played with the guitar strings a few more times. She slowly said, bad luck. It's really bad luck. Xiaoro said anxiously, sister, don't misunderstand, the customer didn't mean that. Then, she turned to the female customer and said apologetically, hello, I heard that you want to buy this guitar? How about I give you a discount and sell this guitar to you at a cheaper price? The female customer was delighted. The instruments in this shop were all top quality goods. A guitar here would cost tens of thousands, the rest were all about this price as well. When she heard Xiaoro offering her a discount, she no longer minded that the guitar had been touched by Xiaoxi. Of course, I'm okay with that, Miss Xiao, you sure know how to do business, unlike that. The female customer snorted. Xiaoro smiled gently and waved her hand to call the sales assistant over to pass the receipt. Right at this moment, Xiaoxi suddenly stepped forward to stop the sales assistant and confronted Xiaoro. What do you mean by this? You're selling the guitar that I touched at a discounted price? Do you agree with her words? Do the guitars that I've touched bring bad luck? Xiaoro pursed her lips. Sister, you've misunderstood, that's not what I meant. Xiaoxi's eyelids twitched. Misunderstanding? Screw this misunderstanding. Gu Moling protected Xiaoro behind him and looked at Xiaoxi with dissatisfaction. Xiaoxi, don't go too far. Ro is obviously doing this for your sake. You got yourself into trouble and Ro is the one spending so much effort to clean up your mess. What exactly are you dissatisfied about? Business owners were most scared of bad luck. In his opinion, Xiaoxi had better stay in the villa for the rest of her life, lest she embarrass the Chia family. Brother Moling, don't say any more, sister, She just doesn't understand these things. Xiaoro tugged on the corner of Gu Moling's shirt, looking like she was compromising. The customers at the side could not stand it anymore and said, Miss Xiaoro is so sensible even at such a young age. She's clearly the younger sister, but she's more like an elder sister. I can't figure out why the Chia family wanted to bring this person back from the countryside. Couldn't they just let her stay in the countryside and give her some money? No matter how big the Chia family is, they can't handle such a scourge. In the future, wherever eldest Miss Chiao is, I'll walk away. I'm just going to become stupid if I stay in the same space as such an idiotic woman. When she heard the surrounding voices, Xiaoxi shifted her gaze and looked at Xiaoro. Is this your ability? To incite others to attack me? Sister, what are you talking about? After a pause, she continued, I know that you're anxious and want to learn more to help our family, but there are some things that can't be rushed. I'll help you settle this matter. You don't have to worry about it. Xiaoxi chuckled, this isn't something worth my concern at all. So what if she touched something in her own shop? If she was in a good mood, she could even play the instruments directly. The people around her were infuriated by her self-righteousness. Damn, how could this woman say such things? Too arrogant, too overboard. She was the one who made the mistake. Xiaoro was kind enough to help her deal with the aftermath, but she could not even say anything nice. Did she think that someone owed her money? Sister, Xiaoro's eyes turned red. How could you say that? Gu Moling held Xiaoro's shoulder and berated Xiaoxi coldly. Xiaoxi, what's wrong with you? Even though you came back from the countryside, you should at least understand basic gratitude, right? After the Chia family brought you back, they found countless teachers to teach you etiquette. Is this how you repay the Chia family's efforts? Quickly apologize to Ro. The surrounding customers looked at each other in dismay. I've long heard that the Chia family's eldest daughter is a piece of trash. Now that I've met her today, she really lives up to her reputation. TSK. If Chia Corporation is handed to such a person, it won't be long before they file for bankruptcy. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, Hey, isn't that Mr. Zhang? He's here to seek justice for Miss Xiaoro, right? After all, Miss Xiaoro is too gentle, so she'll be at a disadvantage against some shameless people. Definitely. Mr. Zhang doesn't usually appear. If it weren't for Miss Xiaoro, why would he suddenly appear today? Mr. Zhang was the manager and had long received the news that the eldest miss was coming to check on the shop today. However, he was caught up in an urgent matter and only managed to come over now. Miss, I'm sorry I'm late. He pushed through the crowd while panting. When Xiaoro heard Mr. Zhang's voice, her body was shaking. She looked back aggrievedly. Mr. Zhang, are you here to deal with my sister? It's okay, I've already appeased the customers. Xiaoro boosted herself up by stepping on Xiaoxi. One was causing trouble in the shop while the other was cleaning up the mess. It was a pity that Mr. Zhang, the manager, did not even look at Xiaoro. He hurriedly ran in front of Xiaoxi and smiled awkwardly. Eldest miss, I'm sorry I'm late. With that said, he scanned the crowd around him and shouted at the sales assistant. What are you doing? Hurry up and serve eldest miss some tea. This is the first time eldest miss has come to look at the shop. Is this how you're supposed to be serving her? Everyone was stunned. Mr. Zhang, why did he walk up to Xiaoxi and even greet her as eldest miss? Was this shop not owned by Xiaoro? Xiaoro also panicked. What was wrong with Mr. Zhang? Why was he so respectful toward Xiaoxi? She was clearly the daughter of the Chia family. Although Xiaoxi had taken the title of the eldest daughter upon her return, everyone in the company knew that Xiaoxi was a good-for-nothing and no one took her seriously at all. Why was Mr. Zhang so obsequious to Xiaoxi? She had a bad feeling. The person next to him could not stand it anymore and took the initiative to remind him. Mr. Zhang, you've got the wrong person. That woman is the eldest daughter of the Chia family who was abandoned in the countryside back then. She doesn't hold any position. Your boss is Miss Xiaoro. Mr. Zhang frowned. Xiaoro observed his expression and thought that he had made a mistake. He must have mistaken Xiaoxi for her and that was why he showed such a flattering attitude toward Xiaoxi. Now that Mr. Zhang knew her identity, He should. Miss Xiaoro? What are you talking about? Unexpectedly, Mr. Zhang shouted loudly. Our immediate superior is Miss Xiaoxi. What? Everyone widened their eyes and subconsciously looked at Xiaoro. Did Xiaoro not say that this shop was hers? Xiaoxi, who had been silent all this while, calmly took a sip of tea and said slowly, "This shop is under Qiao Corporation, and I have 65% of the shares, so this shop." "That's impossible, you're not married yet, and the transfer of shares has yet to take effect. You're not the owner of this shop. The equity transfer agreement is in effect." Xiaoxi calmly took out the share transfer agreement. Xiaoro's face turned pale. "No, that's impossible." Her body swayed and she almost lost her balance. The share transfer agreement in Xiaoxi's hand was like Pandora's box, making her not even have the courage to look at it. Mr. Zhang was filled with righteous indignation. "Xiaoro, what do you mean? First, you took over eldest Miss shop and said strange things to make the customers misunderstand her. Now, you've started to question eldest Miss identity. How can you be so scheming at such a young age? I think eldest Miss bad reputation was all caused by your nonsensical words." Xiaoxi could not help but raise her eyebrows. She had to say that Mr. Zhang was doing a good job of revealing the truth. Gu Moling was also shocked by this sudden twist of events. This shop belongs to Xiaoxi? Ro, what exactly is going on? Had they not said that before Xiaoxi got married, the Qiao family would temporarily hold on to the shares? Xiaoro's face froze as her nails dug into her palms. She also wanted to know what was going on. She bit her lip and took a deep breath. She tried her best to use a gentle voice to reply to Gu Moling. "Brother Moling, I'm not too sure about this either. Dad didn't mention anything about transferring the shares. My sister has changed too much recently. Sometimes, I don't quite understand what she's doing. Since she said that this shop is hers, then it's hers, right?" As she spoke, she sized up Xiaoxi and Mr. Zhang as though the two were in an adulterous relationship. Gu Moling fell for it and misunderstood the situation. He narrowed his eyes and sneered in disdain. "Ha, she's going astray and degrading herself. Xiaoxi, what were these two doing?" She did not understand Xiaoro's gaze, but it did not mean that Mr. Zhang could not. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. "Xiaoro, what do you mean by that? Tell me clearly in front of all these people. What do you mean your father never mentioned the transfer of shares? What do you mean eldest Miss has changed too much recently? You mean to say that eldest Miss and I are colluding to deceive you, right?" Xiaoro bit her lip. I didn't mean that." The surrounding people could not help but speak out in support. "Xiaoro has already said that she would give the shop to Xiaoxi, so why are you still pursuing the matter? I think Mr. Zhang has a special relationship with Xiaoxi. Otherwise, why is he helping her? Bah, shameless." When Mr. Zhang heard what the people around him were saying, he was so angry that his face turned red. He was already in his middle ages, yet he was being made out into such a person. "Nonsense, you're just spouting nonsense. How unreasonable." Xiaoxi was now the head of Qiao Corporation, so what was wrong with him being respectful to her? What was wrong with him saying that this shop belonged to Xiaoxi? Xiaoro was so full of schemes at such a young age. She managed to incite the people around her to speak up for her with just a few words. It was too scary. "All right, Mr. Zhang." Xiaoxi raised her hand to calm Mr. Zhang down. Her gaze swept across the few customers who had just spoken and she spoke slowly. "Everyone here will receive a lawyer's letter for slander." Mr. Zhang continued, "Don't worry, eldest Miss, leave this matter to me. I'll definitely clear your name." The people who just spoke out earlier were stunned. They had just casually echoed a few words. How did it become slander? After dealing with the customers who were spouting nonsense, Xiaoxi looked at Gu Moling and asked with a smile, "I heard that you came over today because you've taken a fancy to a guitar that just arrived at our shop." Gu Moling said unnaturally, "Yes, why?" The corners of Xiaoxi's mouth curled up lightly. "It's nothing. If you have taken a liking to something in the shop, you could have just gotten someone to make the trip here. I would have asked someone to deliver it to you. Why would you trouble yourself by coming all the way here?" Gu Moling did not expect that Xiaoxi would say this and was slightly surprised. "It's all right. I wanted to come over and take a look myself. Thank you, Shishi, for your kind intentions." Shishi? He was calling her Shishi after she just said a few words? Xiaoxi shook her head. Her exquisite facial features were not concealed by makeup, and it was the first time that Gu Moling realized Xiaoxi was actually a true beauty. She was wearing an inconspicuous sweater, but she could easily attract everyone's attention even if she stood in a crowd. Her arched eyebrows had a sharpness that was different from Xiaoro's. Like an unsheathed sword, mysterious and dangerous. "There's no need to thank me. After all, that guitar is priceless. We spent a lot of effort to get it. It's fate that you've taken a liking to it." as the owner of the shop, I'll give you a 10% discount. Xiaoxi continued. The price of the guitar is 2 million. May I ask if you're paying by card or check? The moment she said that, the shop fell into a dead silence. Gu Moling's expression was a little ugly. She, what did you say? I said it's a total of 2 million. Young Master Gu, please pay up. Xiaoxi smiled meaningfully. Sister, what are you doing? Xiaoro saw that Gu Moling's expression was not looking good and took the initiative to say shyly. Brother Moling has close ties with our family. How could we ask him to pay? Xiaoxi smiled slightly. What's his relationship with the Qiao family? Why doesn't he need to pay for things? When doing business, even blood-related brothers have to settle accounts openly. I spent a great deal of money to get this guitar, but you expect me to give it to him for free. If that was the case, she did not need to continue operating this shop anymore. If Gu Moling came over a few times a month, their shop would close down. Xiaoro choked. Xiaoxi did not care what she thought. She asked Mr. Zhang to bring out the bill. She wanted to know just how many things had Gu Moling taken from this shop over the years without paying a cent. Gu Moling's expression was very ugly. The marriage between the Gu family and the Qiao family had been set in stone long ago. Every time he came to the shop to buy things, Xiaoro would say that he did not need to pay. They would be a family sooner or later, so there was no need to hurt their relationship over such a small amount of money. At first, Gu Moling did not think it was a good idea, but he gradually got used to it. Every time he came to the store to get something, he would later give Xiaoro a gift of the same price. However, no one else knew about this. Xiaoxi's expression was slightly unsightly after they finished counting the total amount of all the things Gu Moling had taken from the store all these years. Young Master Gu, it's over 30 million yuan. How much is our shop's annual turnover? There are even many musical instruments that are beyond our purchasing power. Just because you wanted them, we spent a lot of effort to find them for you, but you took them away just like that. Don't you have any shame? This was the first time Gu Moling knew that Xiaoxi could be so overbearing. He explained with a dark expression. I didn't do it. You didn't? Xiaoxi pointed at the computer screen, which showed multiple records. You didn't take them? Could it be that the employees in our store have wronged you by keying in false records? Mr. Zhang was anxious. Eldest miss, I'm innocent. I swear that every single record here is real. Young Master Gu, you must be joking, right? The Gu family is big and powerful. You can easily fork up 30 million yuan. We also have surveillance cameras in our shop. We can find footage of you taking away all the things. Upon hearing Mr. Zhang's words, Gu Moling's expression turned even uglier. He had indeed taken those things, but they were not necessarily free. If he had to admit that he took those things for free, he would rather die. Fortunately, Xiaoro knew how to read people's expressions. She bit her lip and pulled the corner of Xiaoxi's clothes, saying somewhat embarrassedly, Sister, don't force Brother Moling, okay? Those things were all given to Brother Moling by me. He didn't take our things without paying. You gave them to him? That's perfect. Xiaoxi printed out the bill and stuffed it into Xiaoro's hands. You'll pay for what you gave away. Xiaoro held the bill like it was a hot potato. How was she going to return the 30 million? Sister, why are you like this? She looked aggrieved and was about to cry. What's wrong with me? You should be asking yourself who else on earth does business like you do. Giving away things worth over 30 million just like that. Do you think the Qiao family is doing charity? No matter how big Qiao Corporation is, they won't allow you to squander money like this, right? Who said that Xiaoro was a genius? In Xiaoxi's eyes, she was a stupid woman. Xiaoro's nails dug into her palms. Xiaoxi was pushing all the blame to her with just a few sentences. If her father found out that she had given Qiao Corporation's things to Gu Moling for free, who knew how he would scold her? The marriage between their two families was for mutual benefits, not to let the Gu family suck their resources. Thinking about this, Xiaoro could only suppress her resentment and grit her teeth. She agreed and said, Sister, you're right, I'll cover the bill. 3 days. Xiaoxi lazily leaned against the table and stretched out 3 fingers. I'll give you 3 days to transfer everything to me with interest. Xiaoro looked troubled. Where could she get the money in such a short time? Her gaze swept past the silent Gu Moling, and Xiaoxi gave a light TSK. You have such bad taste in men. She waved at Gu Moling. Even though my engagement with you has been cancelled, I heard that you've hooked up with my sister? As a man, isn't this the time when you should step forward? Those words carried a lot of information. Sensing the probing gazes of the people around him, Gu Moling finally could not take it anymore. He quickly paid with his card and pulled Xiaoro away. Before he left, he glanced fiercely at Xiaoxi. The hacker he contacted earlier had already accepted his request. Once he erased the video on Xiaoxi's phone, he would see if she could continue acting this way in front of him. Xiaoxi did not mind Gu Moling's gaze at all. She was in a good mood and was about to pack her things to go home. Suddenly, she was stunned. Gu Zheng was standing in a corner of the shop, leaning against a pillar. His long legs were slightly bent, and his dark eyes were full of smiles. Earlier, Xiaoxi had looked like a lion defending its territory, ferocious and difficult to deal with. However, she was inexplicably cute at the same time. Gu Zheng chuckled. "Mrs. Gu." This was the first time Gu Zheng addressed Xiaoxi as Mrs. Gu. His voice was low and charming, like a small brush that tickled one's heart. "Mrs. Gu, you're so fierce." Xiaoxi's expression froze. "You think I was being fierce? I was clearly very polite just now." "All right." Xiaoxi silently rolled her eyes. At this moment, she suddenly recalled the rumors about her from the outside world, so she raised her eyes and pretended to be puzzled as she looked at Gu Zheng. "Am I fierce? Everyone says that the weak can't take care of themselves." Gu Zheng, he looked at her in disbelief. What was wrong with this woman? Was she crazy? She was weak and could not take care of herself. After feeling content from looking at Gu Zheng's shocked expression, Xiaoxi rubbed her face and said seriously, "Mr. Gu, you're too inexperienced. If you think I was fierce earlier, you might not be able to accept me when I show you just how fierce I can be." If he was calling her fierce for just getting Gu Moling and Xiaoro to pay their debts, would he not be scared to death if he ever found out what she had done in the past? However, as the overlord of Li City, he would not be so timid, right? Xiaoxi pondered in her heart. "I'm inexperienced?" Gu Zheng was so angry that he laughed. "Are you saying that I'm inexperienced?" He approached Xiaoxi step by step, his long eyelashes casting a shadow under his eyes. His aura was terrifying. "Xiaoxi, should I say that you're fearless because you don't know anything, or should I say it's because you're too naive?" Despite being the youngest child of the Gu family, he was able to surpass his brother who was ranked at the top and become the head of the Gu family. He only took 1 year to lead the Gu family into becoming the overlord of Li City. How could someone like him be called inexperienced? Xiaoxi gasped softly and raised her head to meet Gu Zheng's gloomy eyes. "Or should I say that I'm full of confidence? The brave are invincible." No, after all, although Gu Zheng was powerful, she was not weak either. Gu Zheng's face darkened as he turned around to leave. He could not communicate with this woman. Where did she get the confidence to say such things? As she watched Gu Zheng leave in a huff, Xiaoxi massaged the space between her eyebrows. She realized that Gu Zheng was too difficult to understand. He always got angry at the slightest thing. Mr. Zhang recovered his initial shock from seeing Gu Zheng and carefully advised, "Perhaps you should learn to be a little more gentle." "Eldest miss." Xiaoxi lazily propped up her chin. "How should I be gentle? Like Xiaoro?" Mr. Zhang thought about the image and shuddered. "Forget it. Forget it, eldest miss. You're good enough just like this." Xiaoxi nodded. She also felt that it was good for her to just be like this. However, how was she going to kiss Gu Zheng if he angrily left the room every time? How would she enjoy the original flavors of food? Thinking about this, Xiaoxi opened WeChat and scrolled through her contacts before finally sending a message to Mo Yuan. How do you coax a man? Only Mo Yuan could give her an answer whenever she had strange questions. Gu Zheng was standing outside the door, smoking to calm his emotions. When his phone vibrated, he casually took it out to take a look. When he saw the question sent by Black Tide, Gu Zheng immediately thought that this person was treating him as a counselor. He bit on his cigarette and typed with his head lowered. "Say sweet words and act cute. Men are the easiest creatures in the world to coax." "Xiaoxi, I think you're lying to me." At the same time, Gu Zheng sent another message. "Do me a favor as well. Tell me how to suppress a woman?" This message was Gu Zheng's last-minute idea. Xiaoxi casually replied, "What kind of suppression?" Gu Zheng, "In terms of aura." Xiaoxi smacked her lips and typed furiously, "Brother, you're too lame. You can't even suppress a woman. You weakling. F***ck. Gu Zheng was so angry that he wanted to smash his phone. "If you can't even coax a man, what kind of woman are you? You're a tomboy." Xiaoxi snorted. Who said she could not coax men? She put her phone in her pocket and strode out of the shop. At the door, Gu Zheng was looking at the WeChat conversation. He had not received a reply and wondered if he had stepped out of bounds. At that moment, he heard footsteps behind him. Following that, his arm was grabbed by someone who exerted a strong force. Xiaoxi pressed him against the pillar and immediately kissed him. After their lips parted, Xiaoxi was slightly out of breath. She rested her chin on Gu Zheng's shoulder and said softly in his ear, "Don't be angry anymore, alright? It was my fault just now. I was naive and stupid. I was fearless because I didn't know anything. Gu Zheng, Xiaoxi had taken some time earlier to look up a good coaxing method that she could use. First step, don't care about the consequences. Just kiss them. Step 2, bye. Thus, before Gu Zheng could recover from his shock, Xiaoxi grabbed his wrist and got into the car. They went straight to the largest shopping mall in the area. She said boldly, "Go ahead, buy whatever you like. I'll pay." The sales assistants could not help but look at them strangely. Gu Zheng's face instantly darkened. He gnashed his teeth and said, "Xiaoxi, what are you trying to do?" First, she kissed him without any explanation. Now, she had dragged him to the mall and was saying things that would cause misunderstandings. Was this woman humiliating him? Buy you things? Seeing that Gu Zheng's expression was not pleasant, Xiaoxi thought for a moment. You don't like this mall? Then let's go to another one. Gu Zheng don't like my *SS. This was his mall, and there was a huge amount of money flowing in every day. How could he not like it? You shouldn't go crazy here. We're going home, right now. Longwan Residential. After sending Xiaoxi to the door, Gu Zheng drove off without stopping. Xiaoxi looked at the back of his car, her red lips slowly pursing before she slowly exhaled. Alright, she admitted that men were really too difficult to coax. Xiaoxi entered the villa dejectedly. Before she could change her shoes, she heard a few discordant voices. Young madam? She's just a vixen who somehow managed to seduce young master. You guys saw her too, right? That woman is very slutty. She seduced young master so brazenly at the dining table and even kissed him. Ugh! How doesn't she find her own behavior disgusting? Everyone knows that our young master previously had an engagement with the daughter of the Meng family. Only someone like Miss Meng can be called young madam. As for this woman, she'll probably be chased out very soon. Let me tell you a secret. Young master doesn't even sleep in the same room as her. Stop talking. That woman is back. The servants all looked at Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi kept her eyes fixed on the door as she walked in. The servants were dissatisfied with her attitude and went forward to surround her, their expressions full of disdain and arrogance. The servant in the lead sneered. Miss Qiao, right? I heard you came from the countryside? No wonder you're so unsophisticated. What right do you have to stay by young master's side? I advise you to leave as soon as possible. Only a woman like Miss Meng is worthy of being our mistress. Xiaoxi stopped in her tracks, her clear eyes filled with confusion. Is the owner of this villa you or Gu Zheng? Of course, it's young master. Oh, Xiaoxi nodded. If you hadn't said that the owner of this villa is Gu Zheng, I would have thought that it was you. After all, it seems you can decide who the mistress of this villa is. You sure have a lot of power. The servant widened her eyes. What are you talking about? When did she decide who the mistress of this villa was? Didn't you say that only someone like Miss Meng is worthy to be your mistress? The servant could not help but raise her voice. I'm just saying that compared to you, Miss Meng is more suitable to be the Gu family's young madam. However, reality has proven that your thoughts are wrong. After all, the person standing here is me. Xiaoxi raised her hand and pointed at herself. Look clearly. I'm your true mistress. I'm an important figure who can decide whether you can remain here and work. The servant laughed. Decide if we can work here? Do you really think of yourself as someone important? We've worked here for 2 to 3 years. Do you think you can chase us away with just one sentence? What a joke. A joke. A deep and cold male voice sounded at the door. Gu Zheng did not expect to see such a dramatic scene the moment he came back. His cold gaze swept across everyone present. The servants shuddered, and the one who had just spoken turned pale. Her legs were trembling as she stammered. Why, young master, it's not what you heard. I did it in a moment of anger. In a moment of anger, Gu Zheng repeated the servant's words unhurriedly. You said that my wife has no right to chase you away in a moment of anger? You pointed fingers at the mistress of this villa in a moment of anger? Who gave you the guts? Xiaoxi had angered him so many times, but he had always vented his anger behind her back without throwing a temper in front of her. What right did these servants have to speak so carelessly to Xiaoxi in a moment of anger? The mistress that he had personally chosen and the woman who had entered his household register was being bullied by the servants in his villa. Gu Zheng's eyes became increasingly deep as his gaze fell on Xiaoxi. Aren't you usually quite formidable when dealing with me? Why are you holding yourself back now? How could she let a few servants bully her? She did not even have the time to say anything when Gu Zheng came back. The servant from earlier panicked when she saw Gu Zheng's attitude. Young master, Gu Zheng walked to Qiaoxi's side and slowly held her hand with his well-defined fingers. Take a look and see if there's anyone you like here. If there isn't, then dismiss all of them. Let's get a new batch of servants, and you can personally pick them. From the beginning till the end, he never even looked at the servants. He only lowered his head and looked at Qiaoxi with a gentle gaze. He handed the power to rule the household to her. Qiaoxi knew that Gu Zheng was helping her establish her authority. She had experienced such a thing before. She remembered that when she first returned to the Chia family, the Chia family's servants had looked down on her and said all kinds of nasty things. How did her father and Sumei handle it? They said that these servants had been working in the Chia family for quite a long time, so the family had to be understanding when they occasionally made mistakes. They said they hoped Qiaoxi could be more magnanimous and not stoop to the servants' level. Qiaoxi lowered her head to look at her hand that Gu Zheng was holding. The joints of his palm were distinct, and there were some calluses on his fingers. They were rubbing against the back of her palm unhurriedly, providing her comfort. Qiaoxi lightly exhaled, then rested her forehead on Gu Zheng's arm as if she was tired. She said in a dispirited voice, "Just fire them all. I don't like having so many people around." Gu Zheng lowered his eyes to look at the top of the woman's head. All of a sudden, he raised his other hand and patted the top of her head while replying softly, "Okay." With that, he ordered the security guards to chase all the servants out. Ignoring the maid's cries, Gu Zheng looked at Qiaoxi, who was pressing all her weight on him, with a strange expression. Was this woman really affected by the incident with the maids? Why did she suddenly change so much? In reality, Qiaoxi just did not know how to deal with the surging emotions in her heart. Gu Zheng's undisguised protection was something she had never expected or experienced. She seemed to have always been alone. When she was young, her health was not good. When she was bullied, she could only hide in a corner and cry silently. After growing up and becoming more powerful, she learned to fight back. Just like those servants, she had 100 ways to deal with them. She had already thought of what to do if Gu Zheng did not agree to let her handle them. Who would have thought that Gu Zheng would suddenly return and give her his support without hesitation? Her behavior was too abnormal. Gu Zheng could not help but hold her shoulders as he asked worriedly, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Qiaoxi stared at her toes and shook her head. "No, I just suddenly realized that being weak is quite good as well. At least, it felt good to have someone to protect her." Gu Zheng, although he was a little speechless, Qiaoxi's tone when she said this made his heart ache. When he thought of what had happened to Qiaoxi, he subconsciously reached out and pulled her into his embrace. "If you want to be weak, then be weak. Even if the sky collapses, your man will hold it up for you." "Yeah." Qiaoxi grabbed Gu Zheng's clothes and rubbed against his chest, letting her emotions surge in his safe embrace.